Every week somebody calls me and says, "Hey, I have this 3-year-old machine and it already needs like a $200 repair." Well, once they tell me the symptoms, I pretty much know what machine they have because I see it come through this shop every week. Same thing every week. And this isn't some marketing department filling you with a bunch of bull, but nobody's paying me to do this. But I'm going to tell you what machines that I wouldn't buy, and I don't think you should either because they're prone to these kind of failures. So let's get into that right now. Now, before I tell you which brands I'd be careful about, let me be clear about something. No brand makes a perfect machine. Every brand has good models and bad ones. What I'm telling you today is what I see week after week in this shop, not what a salesman is going to tell you in a showroom. So let's get right to it. Now, first up is Samsung. And specifically, I'm talking about the Samsung Active Water Jet Top Load Washer. You've seen these in the big box stores. They're very attractive machines, different colors, metallic grays and whites, and they're reasonably priced. And they have this built-in faucet on the drum, and you can treat your stains right there in the tub. It sounds great, but here's what happens to it after a few years. The machine starts to throw these UB or DC error codes, and these are unbalanced loads. The clothes come out soaking wet, spin cycle starts sensing an imbalance. It stops, refills with water, and it tries again. It fails over and over and over. And your water bill starts going up. No matter how many times you rearrange that load, it doesn't help. And the machine is telling you it's a distribution problem. It's not a distribution problem. The first thing every technician tries, including me when I first saw this, was the suspension rods. And now there's 4 rods, and they're pretty inexpensive, and it's a straightforward repair. So you replace them, the customer comes get the machine, he's really hopeful, and a week later he calls you back, says the same codes are coming up because the rods were never the problem to begin with. And here's what's actually happening, and it took me a while to figure this out. At the bottom of that spin basket, there's a flange with a splined hub in it. And it's a precision fitted connection between that basket and the drive shaft. And on these machines, those splines wear out. They wear around the top of this small cylindrical hole, and at the bottom, and it gets to be like an hourglass shape. And when that happens, the basket can no longer sit true on that drive shaft, and it leans over about 2 or 3 degrees. And it starts to wobble on every rotation. It is doing this. Now the machine detects that wobble and it throws the code and it stops the spin. Yeah. No suspension rods, no leveling, no load trick fixes a strip spline hub. The correct repair is to change that flange or change the entire spin basket assembly. And that's Samsung part number DC9716990. And on many of these models, that part has been discontinued, and anywhere you look at it, it says no longer available. And it's gone from Samsung supply. And I've had to tell customers that their machine is a total loss, not because it wore out after 20 years of hard use, it's because a splined hub gave out after only 5 years. And that part doesn't exist anymore. The broader Samsung pattern is consistent. Control boards on these models run over $270 for the part alone. And Consumer Reports has flagged declining reliability across Samsung's entire washer lineup. Their compact washers have dropped into a non-recommended tier. More complexity than the machine can sustain, and part support that ends before the machine reasonably should. And now next is Frigidaire washers. Now Frigidaire makes really decent refrigerators and ranges, and their washers, they're a different story. I see them come in for balance problems, for mid-cycle failures, and for drainage issues. And the FFTW4120SW in particular has a documented history of problems. Unbalanced spin cycles that suspension rod replacement's not going to fix. And machines that stop in mid-cycle, water level sensors that misread the load. If you love Frigidaire in the kitchen, I get it, but for the laundry, I'd steer you somewhere else. Now let's talk about what I call these invisible brands, Midea and Criterion and Galanz. These have expanded into the U.S. presence significantly in recent years, and the pitch is simple. You get the same features for less money. But here's the problem. Parts availability is really poor for these machines. Service networks are really thin or non-existent, and the build quality really reflects the price that you pay. The savings you think you're getting disappear the first time something breaks, and you find out nobody stocks a part, and there's no local technician that knows about the machine. So don't do it. Don't buy these machines. Now I want to talk to you about something bigger than just brands. When you buy an appliance, you're not just buying the machine, you're buying the manufacturer's commitment to support it. And that commitment shows up in parts availability. And this is my favorite brand, Speed Queen. They keep parts available for decades. I can get components for machines that are 20 years old. And that's a company that stands behind what it sold you. Compare that to a manufacturer who discontinues parts over a 6-year-old machine like Samsung did with the active water jet. That's not an engineering failure, that's a business decision. They'd rather you go out and buy a new one. And when you're shopping, read that warranty language carefully. So if you're looking at it, a 10-year limited warranty, it sounds impressive until you find out in the fine print that it usually covers only the motor and the outer tub, and these are parts that almost never fail. Now, the parts that do fail, electronics, control boards, basket assemblies, now those are typically covered for only 1 year, and after that, you're on your own. So what do I recommend? I covered this in detail in a previous video, and I'll recap it here quickly. Speed Queen is going to sit at the top. Heavier components, metal where there's other brands that use plastic. They have drive systems built to commercial standards, and parts are available for decades. And Speed Queen tests their units to 10,400 cycles, and that's roughly 25 years of average household use. Average use, I'd say 2 to 4 people in the family. And when Speed Queen comes into my shop, it's almost always a minor wear problem, a lid switch, a water pump. It's never a structural failure. And sometimes it's stupid stuff that people do, like stuff a king-size comforter and a pillow into a 3.2 cubic foot tub. You just can't do that. For modern features and a larger tub, I still recommend top-load LGs as a practical option. And I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. I don't see many catastrophic LG top-load failures. Most problems are predictable and inexpensive to fix. Their water pumps, the suspension rods, the electronics and lid switches are generally pretty solid. But just know if a control board goes, that repair gets expensive on any electronics, LG included. But for budget buyers, a GE top load is a solid choice. GE spent years perfecting their suspension systems, and it shows. The parts are widely available, repairs are typically pretty straightforward, and they're usually inexpensive. And for heavy use households, lots of kids, several loads a day, commercial grade Whirlpool is what I point people toward if the Speed Queen pricing is going to be a stretch. And I mean actual laundromat style machines. They're not the residential units with a commercial technology stamped on the console. Whirlpool does this on their Maytag brands and stuff. That's just bunk. It's not commercial. It says commercial technology is not a commercial machine. Look for the actual commercial machine, and that's just their marketing. Now here's my final thought. The brands I've already talked about today, they aren't necessarily bad companies. They're making engineering choices and cost choices, and some of those choices show up on my workbench 3 or 4 years after they're sold. And my job is to tell you what I actually see, and not what marketing says. And if you own a Samsung active water jet and you're getting that UV or DC code, before you spend money on suspension rods, pull the wash plate, look at that splined hub, see if it wobbles, and it's going to be at the bottom of that spin basket. And check whether that basket assembly is still available for your model. You're not going to find that splined hub, or what they call the flange. You're not going to find that. It's discontinued. It may completely change whether that machine is going to be worth repairing. Drop your questions in the comments. I read all of them, even if it takes me a while to get back to them. If this video saved you from a bad purchase or a bad repair decision, share it with someone who's shopping right now. Links to the machines I do recommend are in the description below. I'm Chip with Harper and Knowles. Thanks for watching, and